Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Let's get right into it.
If you're listening right now, you are probably someone who absolutely loves gaining new knowledge, but you probably also hate that heavy, burdened feeling of information overload.
Oh, completely. We all do.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack some excerpts from a really fascinating narrative. It's called Gundu's Yuzu.
Wait, I think there's a subtitle too.
Yeah, there is. It's Gundu's Yuzu, Heart Calibration, and the Shepherd's Spring. And basically, it's all about harmonizing the hyper-connected virtual world we live in with, well, authentic human experience.
Which is pretty much the ultimate modern struggle.
Exactly. And the text does this by following three distinct characters. So we've got an elderly mentor, referred to as the uncle. We have an aspiring entrepreneur, that's the nephew, and then a digital ethicist named Roger. And it follows them as they transition away from their digital lives to this physical gathering place.
A place called Dayface. And really, our core objective today is exploring how a person can act as a two-way traveler.
A two-way traveler.
Right. A bridge between this external world of just endless data and the internal landscape of the soul. We want to see how we can all move from just collecting mere information to achieving what the text calls lived wisdom.
I love that phrase, lived wisdom. So let's set the scene, because the physical space in this narrative does a lot of the heavy lifting.
It really does.
They arrive at Gundu's Yuzu, which translates to Dayface. And the source notes this is a village that turned into a neighborhood, and it gets its name because its hill catches the very first rays of the sun.
Which is such a striking image right off the bat.
Yeah, and there's this great cultural detail where the text explains that the word Gundu's Yuzu literally means open, honest, and warm-faced.
It immediately establishes this contrast with the dark, kind of artificial light environments the nephew and Roger are coming from.
Definitely. And let's look at where they're actually staying.
The cabins.
Right, it's not a luxury retreat. They are put in 3 minimalist cabins on a slope that faces a lake. The uncle is in the lowest cabin, closest to the water.
The nephew is in the middle.
And Roger, the ethicist, is at the highest point. And the cabins are just, they are aggressively simple.
Totally stripped down.
Yeah. The text lists exactly what's inside. A stove, a small wooden table, 2 chairs, a narrow bed, and, quote, nothing unnecessary.
Nothing unnecessary, which is profound because that deliberate lack of stuff is a physical manifestation of what they're trying to achieve mentally.
Oh, for sure.
If you take someone who is used to constant digital stimulation and drop them into a room with nothing unnecessary, you force a confrontation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the nephew's arrival perfectly captures that exact confrontation.
It really does.
He steps into his cabin, he drops his backpack on the bed, and he just looks out the window at the lake. And there's this line where the lake's whispering presence basically tells him, "You are seen." But almost instantly, what does he do?
The thumb.
Yes. His thumb just automatically moves toward a social media app on his phone. It's a completely involuntary muscle memory.
It's the phantom itch of the digital age. You listening right now, you know that exact move.
Oh, no, I'll do.
Your thumb just seeks out the algorithm the second there's even a fraction of stillness. It's an active avoidance of silence.
But he catches himself.
He does. He manages to stop, switches the phone to airplane mode, and just places it face down.
Which leads to this massive aha moment. Because instead of scrolling, he opens a physical notebook. And he writes, in all caps, "Human and knowledge as twin brothers."
Such a heavy statement to just drop into a notebook.
And then he follows it up with this realization. He writes, "So many books, so much knowledge, and still I do not know myself. Perhaps this sentence is the true beginning of the journey."
That is the central paradox of our era right there.
Why is that?
Because think about it. In our era of infinite data, self-knowledge is still the hardest metric to acquire.
Wow, yeah.
You have access to all of human history in your pocket, right? But the nephew realizes that all this external data collection hasn't introduced him to himself.
Which is so relatable. You can track your sleep, your steps, your screen time. We have so much data about ourselves.
But having data about your behavior is not the same as understanding your internal landscape. It tells you what you did, but not why you did it.
Or if it even aligns with who you want to be.
Exactly. And that realization hits him hard in the quiet of that cabin.
But the quiet doesn't last too long. The uncle comes by. And I love this part because he doesn't barge in with some grand lecture about putting the phone away.
No, not at all.
He just notes that the lake is catching the evening light and says it's time for the first evening's provision.
Which brings Roger into the picture. He comes down from his higher cabin.
And the text specifically notes his tablet is switched off.
Right. And what's fascinating here is Roger's perspective. He says, let the first 2 days be dedicated to data collection and heart calibration.
Heart calibration.
Yeah. Notice how he uses technology vocabulary to describe this deeply spiritual human process.
It's an engineering term. You calibrate a screen or a scale.
Exactly. Or a navigation system. Roger is implying that the human heart gets knocked out of calibration by the relentless noise of the virtual world.
Its internal compass just sort of drifts.
And if a plane's navigation is off by just 1 degree, it might seem fine at first, but over a long journey, you end up on the wrong continent.
That is such a good way to put it. We miscalibrate slightly every single day.
And taking these 2 days in a minimalist setting is his way of recalibrating to factory settings, essentially.
I love how the uncle grounds this, too. Roger drops this lofty heart calibration concept, and the uncle just says, but first he.
The ultimate grounding mechanism.
Right. And then the narrator gives us this beautiful summary of the day. 3 cabins, 3 temperaments, 3 inner landscapes. The first day was not ending. It was rooting.
Rooting. That word choice is so deliberate.
How so?
Well, think about how you usually end your day.
Exhausted on the couch.
Right, just powering down out of sheer mental fatigue. You hit an off switch because the battery is dead.
Doom scrolling until I drop.
We've all been there. But rooting is an active process. It's about stabilizing yourself, sinking deeper into a foundation.
Drawing up sustenance from your environment.
Exactly. It asks the listener to really consider, how often do you allow yourself to root?
That's a great question to reflect on. And that concept of drawing sustenance leads perfectly into the second part of the story.
The excursion.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting. The next day, the trio visits this small spring, and there's a handwritten sign next to it that says Shepherd Spring.
And the uncle observes the water flowing and drops this incredible piece of wisdom.
He says, little but continuous. Even small goodness, if constant, sustains life.
And Roger, being the ethicist, immediately translates this into his framework. He calls it sustainable goodness. And he admits that is the hardest kind.
Why is it the hardest kind, though?
Because consistency in our virtues is way more difficult than grand one-off gestures, especially today. Our culture rewards spikes.
Oh, like viral moments.
Yes. A massive, highly visible act of charity gets likes and retweets. It trends.
But the quiet stuff doesn't.
Right. Sustainable goodness, being a reliable mentor, showing up every day with integrity, nobody gives you an award for that on social media.
It doesn't trigger the algorithm.
Exactly. It requires a level of internal discipline that is just exhausting if you're looking for external validation.
And the uncle expands on this with a metaphor about the self. He says, if a spring only collects for itself, it stagnates. But if it knows it is entrusted, it nourishes.
Hoarding versus flowing.
Yes. Let's translate that to the real world, like in a career.
Yeah.
If you are an expert at your job, the instinct is often to hoard that knowledge.
To protect your competitive advantage.
Exactly. You become a stagnant pawn. You collect info just for yourself. But if you see that knowledge as something you're entrusted with,
you become a conduit.
You mentor others.
Mm-hmm.
You share. And ironically, that makes you more valuable, not less.
But the nephew struggles with this abstract stuff.
Oh, he really does. He drinks the cold water from the spring, and you can just feel his modern impatience flaring up.
He's an entrepreneur. He wants deliverables.
Right. He asks this ultimate question. So what exactly are we going to do here? Just talk, read poetry, feel inspired, or will something actually change inside us?
He wants the return on investment for his time at this retreat.
He's like, give me the action items.
And this raises an important question. How do you confront the ego when it just wants results?
The uncle's response is so measured. He explains that the ego, when it's left alone, it just deceives.
He compares it to a shadow.
Yes, a shadow that stretches or shrinks according to the light.
Which is such a brilliant visual. The goal of their retreat isn't to kill the ego. You can't kill a shadow. It's to see this shadow not as a symbol of ownership, but as trust.
And Roger tries to parse the ethics of this. He asks the uncle, okay, so if I say I did this, does that mean I'm taking responsibility rather than just glorifying myself?
The line between accountability and self-glorification.
Exactly. And the uncle's reply is profound. He says, saying I did it accepts accountability. Saying I alone did it distorts truth.
That distinction is everything.
I alone did it versus I did it.
Because I alone did it is the great myth of the modern ego. It ignores the mentors, the infrastructure, the history, the natural resources that made your achievement possible.
It's the whole self-made billionaire myth.
Right. You have to
Yeah.
accept accountability. You did the work, but you didn't do it in a vacuum.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the environment around them really starts to teach the lesson.
The nephew finally gets it when he looks at the landscape.
He notices the lake. He realizes the lake is just a guest.
Mm-hmm.
It receives water from the streams, and then it gives water outward. The lake doesn't stand there claiming it is all mine.
And Roger puts a name to this. He calls it the landscape of we consciousness.
We consciousness, I like that.
It's the recognition of an unseen order. Lakes depend on streams. Streams depend on rain. Rain depends on clouds.
Everything is connected.
Exactly. And the ego's default state is to try and slice up that order and claim a specific piece. This is mine. But we consciousness understands you are just one functioning part of a larger cycle.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
If we look at the whole journey of these characters so far, it starts with that digital impulse. The thumb reaching for the phone.
The phantom itch.
Right. And then realizing that all the data in the world doesn't equal self-knowledge, which leads to Roger's concept of heart calibration.
And the uncle showing them how to root at the end of the day instead of just passing out from exhaustion.
Then we get the shepherd spring, that powerful lesson on sustainable goodness, being continuous, even if it's small, rather than just hoarding knowledge or seeking viral spikes.
And finally, breaking down the myth of I alone did it, and shifting from ego-driven ownership to that we consciousness.
It's a massive internal shift for just a couple of days at a cabin.
And the journey isn't even over.
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
As the excerpt ends, the trio is actually heading off to a restaurant. The uncle tells them he has a story to share there, one that's meant to help them, quote, clear the well within.
Which leaves you with this great sense that this work is continuous. You don't just calibrate your heart once and you're done.
It's an ongoing practice.
Exactly. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to really mull over.
Let's hear it.
It builds on the uncle's metaphor that the ego is a shadow that stretches and shrinks according to the light.
Right.
So I want you to ask yourself, in your daily life, what is the light source that is casting your shadow?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because if we spend all our days bathed in the harsh, artificial light of social media metrics or constant external validation,
Your shadow's going to look pretty distorted.
exactly, it becomes monstrous. But if you adjust your positioning, if you step into the natural light of we consciousness, of continuous, small, sustainable goodness,
Then what shape does your shadow take?
precisely, what shape does it take then?
That is a phenomenal thought to end on. Thank you for walking through this with me.
Anytime. It was a great discussion.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today to check your own internal compass. Maybe try putting your phone on airplane mode for just an hour and see what kind of goodness you can sustain. We'll see you next time.